Lorondiak ba malu karena insernabe horas ne assisti hela programa live streaming agência tatolinian ia centro convenção dili hori transmite baita bocira kona ba loron iku susi quarta conferência comunidade luso asiático nebe halau ia Timor Leste se quarta sessão ba conferência loron ohinian se yahu discurso husi primeiro ministro Kairala Sanana Gusmao depois continua kira so palestra nebe lori husi professor Dr. Wijaya Daya Wijaya honya tema maka kampung tugu na encruzilhada cultural global husi tugu Jakarta Indonesia tambahnya maluk sira atu hatene kona ba quarta konferensia ba sessão loron ikusnian mai ita assisti hamutu kia centro convenção dele.
Muito bom dia. A partir do Centro de Convenções de Dili, damos início à nossa cobertura especial do último dia da quarta Conferência das Comunidades Luso-Asiáticos. E hoje o programa arranca com os discursos, seguido por várias palestras, mesas redondas e apresentações culturais com foco nas influências e permanências da presença portuguesa na Ásia. E por isso fiquem connosco para mais atualizações.
Bom dia. Selamat pagi. Good morning. How are you today? Como estáis? Muito bem? Estudantes, como estão? Bem, não bem? Oh, bem. Malacca, how are you all? Fine. Muito bom, isso mesmo. Eu não sei, eu vou falar em português? Sorry. Excellencies, distinguished dignitaries representing the Luso-ASEAN community delegations, you all, esteemed representatives of international organizations, if they are here, I hope that you are all there. Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished members of the Parliament, I cannot see anybody here, and the government, yes, usually they used to come to eat. We have to be frank, no? Excellencies, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, and dear students, caros estudantes. Also, no? Estudantes also? No. It is with great honor and pleasure that we welcome to Delhi for the very first time an event dedicated to the unity and preservation of Portuguese Asian communities. This fourth conference of the Portuguese Asian communities is, in my view, historic, not only due to the breadth and the strong participation of the communities represented, but above all, for the powerful message we seek to share with the world, which has been echoed throughout these last 2 days. We are united in what? In what? We are united in diversity. Oh my. It is the third day and you didn't read yet. Regardless of what separates us, be it geography, political systems, ideologies, or distinct historical and cultural journeys, there is something that binds us in a unique way. Our shared ancestry, history. And this means we hold a common identity that distinguishes us from other communities around the world. It also means we are brought together spontaneously by deep bonds of friendship and a shared will for cooperation. This unity in diversity has never been more relevant than it is today. In a world divided and scared by conflict, instability, and war, any initiative that aims to institutionalize the values of solidarity, cooperation, and humanism is a ray of hope. We gather here today to affirm a shared understanding that in Asia, despite the physical and temporal distance from a distant ancestry, there are still communities that feel and speak, or once spoke, a common language, and that share culture traits and similar values. And these values are rooted in peace, friendship, and dignity. They are expressed through art, dance, music, and song, magnificent cultural expressions we have had the privilege to witness over the past 2 days. Here, in this convention center, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear students, as you know, Timor-Leste has endured a difficult past of colonization, followed by a painful period of illegal and violent occupation. Yet, we, the Timorese, chose to overcome the bitterness rooted in our collective memory and to resolve our internal and external conflicts through reconciliation. With courage and dialogue, we embraced what we call future-oriented justice to confront acknowledge, assume, and move beyond the traumas of war and the ideological context associated with the historical regimes from colonialism to the Cold War. Embracing and understanding history and trusting in an international rules-based system were the cornerstones of the achievements that we can share with the world. They allowed us to break our isolation, to gain the courage and resilience, to keep resisting, and ultimately to secure our full sovereignty. This process of deconstruction not only freed us from corrosive feelings, but also created the necessary space for what truly matters. In the present, building the state and nation and working toward the sustainable development of our country. This example has never been more relevant than it is today. This world faces grave geopolitical, socioeconomic, and environmental challenges. Challenges that can only be addressed through humanism, rooted in the highest values of solidarity, tolerance, and cooperation. Regrettably, we now see that the greater the power and the economic capacity, the greater the intransigence. And this, ladies and gentlemen, it is the central weakness of the developed world, the relentless pursuit of economic interests at the expense of human dignity. True courage lies not in inflexibility or confrontation, but in the unwavering search for peaceful solutions to collective problems. I am confident that this conference in Dili, by strengthening ties among our communities and peoples, marks a firm step on the path toward development and the well-being of our societies. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, Timor-Leste is the only CPLP country located in the East. We therefore share a particular connection with the Luso-descendant minority communities in Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Myanmar, Thailand, China, Indonesia, India, reinforcing our natural affinity with the Asian region, now strengthened by this new dimension. We recognize one another not only through cultural, religious, and linguistic heritage, but also through our common vulnerabilities, through the challenges overcome across centuries, and above all, through our shared desire to create better living conditions for our communities. It was from this spirit of recognition and dialogue that the first conference of the Portuguese Asian Communities was born in 2016. I cannot let this moment pass without thanking the Luso-descendant community of the Portuguese settlement in Malacca for initiating this bold and unifying movement, one that brought us to this day here in Dili. The vision and will to preserve a unique and shared cultural heritage emerging from small communities seeking connection, dialogue, mutual respect, and shared reflection on common challenges is something Timor-Leste could not overlook. From this event, beyond the magnificent cultural celebration, we now have the formal record of the Dili Declaration and the establishment of the Association of Portuguese Asian Communities. The institutionalization of this association with its legal base in Dili fills us with pride. I believe that with the support of the countries of these communities and with the backing of the CPLP and all those who wish to join this mission of promoting centuries old communities with rich cultural and historical legacies, we can also promote peace, tolerance, and the development of our peoples. I conclude by extending my heartfelt thanks to all the communities who traveled to Timor-Leste to take part in this event, to all the cultural groups for their outstanding performance, and we are waiting to see the Togo performance. Yes. And to the conference organizing committee, my thanks for their dedication and excellent work. A special word of appreciation also goes to the Executive Secretary and ambassadors of the CPLP, Secretary, say hello to everybody to know you. Angola, from Angola, Any more? Portugal. Any more? No more? No. Somebody told me German, but no. Here, the Dubris call us German. You want to know what is German here in Timor-Leste? We are from Manatutu municipality. And everybody calls us German. Generation, you understand generation, no? In Portuguese, geração. Geração, generation. That is why keep the ger. Keep the ger. Manatutu, keep the man, German. But because every day, every hour, these two MCs are inviting us to Coffee Garden, Jardim of Café, a place in Timor-Leste, Ermera. They said, you are German, we are America. You want to know how they call themselves America? Yes or not? Yes. Ermera is the place where coffee plants can develop and give us something that we can be proud of. Café, coffee. In Tetun, we say Ami. Ami is we. In Bahasa Indonesia, we is kami. Kami. In Tetun is Ami. Keep the please. Ermera. Ermera. Keep the Amer. Amer. Rich. In Portuguese is rico. Rich, rico. Amer, keep the America. Coffee in Portuguese is café. America. We from Ermera, we are rich in coffee. America. That is why when I got the ambassadors, I can say I am the ambassador of German, who is from Ermera. Nobody is from America here? Nobody. May today mark the beginning of many more centuries of friendship and solidarity among our peoples, reinforcing the important sense of belonging and shared joy that bring us together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making us enjoying really our connection, relationship, and of course, our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for helping us envision a more peaceful and kinder world.
Obrigada, Sua Excelência. Ajuda-nos a mim até que o mundo ida lebih hakmatik no dia Cleo. Terima kasih Yang Mulia karena telah membantu kami melihat dunia yang lebih damai dan lebih baik. Obrigada, Sua Excelência, por nos ajudar a olhar um mundo mais pacífico e amável.
We will now proceed with the fourth session, beginning with the lecture by Professor Daya Wijaya, State University of Malang, researcher of Portuguese expansion in the Indonesian archipelago.
Badadang neita se continua a sessão badahat, a rua palestra o professor Daya Wijaya, Universidade de Malang, investigador da expansão português e arquipélago Indonésia. Untuk saat ini kita akan melanjutkan sesi keempat diawali dengan presentasi oleh Profesor Daya Wijaya dari Universitas Malang, peneliti ekspansi Portugês di Kepulauan Indonésia. Prosseguiremos agora com a quarta sessão, iniciando com a palestra do Professor Daya Wijaya, Universidade de Malang, investigador da expansão portuguesa no arquipélago indonésio.
Professor, the floor is yours.
His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Timor-Leste, Khairala Sarana Kusmau, all fellow speakers, my examinador, professors, distinguished delegation, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, bom dia. Today I would like to share my work entitled Kampung Tugu in the Global Cultural Crossroad during the 17th to 20th centuries. My work discusses the origin of plural society and its cultural hybrids of language, fashion, food, and material culture in Kampung Tugu. Kampung Tugu seems to preserve cultural richness. We can refer to the toponyms of Tugu, which is defined variously. In the Malay or Indonesian language, Tugu means monument, allowing people to interpret that it might mark the boundaries of the territory. Secondly, the Tugu is also derived from the Portuguese language of Português. Lastly, people might also name it after the name of Tugu inscription written in Palava Sanskrit language dating back to the 5th century and issued by King Purnawarman of Tarumanagara. However, the inscription doesn't have a name. It might refer to the place where the inscription is found. The inscription was found in Batutumbu sub-village, Tugu village. Today, Tugu is downgraded to sub-village. Therefore, the toponym of Tugu comes from the Dutch colonial period. People started to name Tugu when 23 Indians stayed there in 1661. Historically, Tugu had welcomed both ethnic groups from Indonesian archipelago and foreigners, Indian, Portuguese, the Dutch, and their offspring. For the people who define Tugu as monument, they might refer to the border between the Dutch colonial master and Tugu people. The Dutch had forced their slaves from various origins to inhabit the swamp area outside the fortress. The slaves later freed were married by the Portuguese-speaking communities named the Mardikers or Mardika, succeeded in surviving because they served the colonial master and adapted easily to their surroundings. As they spoke Portuguese, the Tugu people might identify themselves as Portuguese descendants. However, the Dutch would suspect them if they admitted they were Portuguese. They wanted to be loyal to the Dutch. Therefore, they took some letter of Tugu from Português. Kampung Tugu had already been studied in any aspect of life, including its history, society, language and music, fashion and food, and material culture of church and tombstone. However, all aspects of cross-cultural Tugu have been discussed, but previous scholars have merely mentioned the Tugis tombstone without identifying, documenting, analyzing them further. Besides analyzing the Tugis tombstone, this paper also revisited the hybrid identities in Kampung Tugu. They are following Anthony Reed's work, hybrid identities in the 15th century set of Malacca. There are 4 forms of hybrid identities: language, fashion, food, and material culture. Considering the availability of the Gaelic literature and primary sources in the European archives and chronicles, artifacts of the church and tombstone, and local social facts and artifacts, it is feasible to study the cross-cultural Tugu from 17th to 20th century. This work used a historical approach, allowing the researcher to find all available sources and reconstruct the narrative of the cross-cultural Tugu. Being the Portuguese in the East was not limited to the European Portuguese, but also to anyone who served and subjected himself to the Portuguese crown. Being Portuguese means exercising political dominance and behaving in a manner befitting the special status they enjoy. They emerged as a transnational community as presented by Professor João Paulo Costa Oliveira in our first presentation. In early 16th century, Afonso de Albuquerque established this community in response to the social scarcity in the East, Estaduda India. He issued the mixed marriage policy to populate the Portuguese colonies. He encouraged the retired soldiers to marry Asian women and settle down in the East. In Milapur, India, the married and retired soldiers called the Casadus succeeded in establishing the Shadow Empire of Goa. They organized urban life and have a system autonomously. There was no captain, only a tie with Catholic Church and Portuguese padroado or patronage. The Portuguese community was not merely from the Portuguese descendant, but also by other groups of people who had close contact with the Portuguese, including the indigenous people and the slaves freed by the Portuguese. They claimed they were Portuguese because they embraced Christianity and spoke Portuguese. They also named themselves with the Portuguese names and lived as the Portuguese. In Malacca, for example, Albuquerque children remain to preserve the Portuguese culture and tradition. At least the Portuguese folk song and dance, as you already seen it in the present day Malacca. However, the mixing with the local tradition, the Portuguese community in Kampung Tuku and the Lesser Sunda Islands, the Topazes, could also succeed in preserving the Portuguese culture. In the case of Kampung Tuku, Aldea de Tuku, the Portuguese-speaking communities had already stayed in Jayakarta before the Dutch came. They might join the Portuguese ships and trade in Jayakarta and Banten before settling in and around Jayakarta. When the Dutch occupied Jayakarta in 1619, later the Dutch renamed it to Batavia, the Mardika served as the Dutch military forces. In 1628, there were two companies of infantry from the Mardika fighting the troops of Mataram. The community grew after the Dutch captured Malacca and the other Portuguese possessions on the west coast of India. The uncertain situation forced the merchants and craftsmen living in India and Malacca to move to the prospering Batavia. These people became civil servants, shop owners, clerks in the trade of offices of Batavia. Considering their service, the Dutch gifted them the free and tax-exempted lands in the swamp area named Kampung Tugu in 1661. When the Mardika settled in Kampung Tugu, there were 23 Christians of Bengali and Coromandel origin. In 1676, the number of this family had increased to about 50. Around 100 years later, there were about 134 villagers. Other Mardikas from the villages around Batavia may have joined the original families, who number about 800 souls, part of the which were originally from the Portuguese community in other parts of Batavia. However, the Mardikas experienced the plague of influenza in 1700, and it resulted in death, but they could survive till today. In the last quarter of 18th century, the term of Mardikers or Mardika was rarely used in Batavia. On the other hand, another term had stuck to them, namely the Portuguese. The Dutch claimed that the Portuguese community in Kampung Tugu had the same status as the other Mardikers in Batavia. Before the Dutch abolished their Batavian citizenship in 1815, the Mardikers in Batavia agreed to disband after the last Mardiker captain, Agustin Misils, died in 1833. They abandoned their Portuguese identity and blended in with the rest of Batavian society. The Dutch established their status as Kristen Bumiputra or indigenous Christian residents. However, Tugis had their citizenship, but they kept preserving their Portuguese culture in Kampung Tugu. In the 1920s, the Tugis communities consisted of 9 families of Abraham, Andres, Cornelis, Michel, Solomon, Simon, Wico, Sousa, and Brown. The Tugis enjoyed their life under the Dutch master. When the Japanese expelled the Dutch, few Tugis were left Tugu as a result of uncertain political climate for non-national citizens in the 1940s. After the independence, the Tugis preferred to move to safer countries such as the Netherlands, Suriname, and New Guinea. In 1975, the Tugis were estimated at 500 inhabitants. The usage of the Portuguese language served as a linguistic marker of identity when the Portuguese descendants express a continuous cultural lineage through their dialect and conversation in daily activity, reinforcing a sense of belonging or social identity. They share heritage. The Tukis express their feeling of being Portuguese using Portuguese name. There were common personal name, for example, like Zacharias, Dominguez, Ezekiel, Evangelina, and so on. The godfather or the foster father adopting upon baptism give the surname like Silva, Costa, and de Mayo. In addition, early Mardika surname were Caldeiro de Villanova, conjuring up images of Portuguese grandeur. The Dutch hegemony also influenced the family names in the 18th century. Tukis surname, for instance, Salomon, Andres, Dolores, Cuico, and Makatita, who was original Moluccan name, and there have been intermarriages with non-Mardikas. In 1866, there was Cuico and Andres, who were both teachers, but there were already more of non-Mardika origin. The Mardika spoke Portuguese daily, despite the Dutch encouraging them to learn the Dutch language. Although these Mardikas had become Protestant, the constant use of Portuguese made it necessary to retain this language for religious service since 1634. The Calvinist preachers were forced to learn Portuguese. The Portuguese priest, João Pereira de Almeida, had already responsibility to translate and publish the first Bible in the Portuguese in 1681. Therefore, the Mardikas could understand Calvinism comprehensively. The Dutch also borrowed the Portuguese words in their language. From 16th to 17th century, the Dutch were motivated to speak Portuguese because the Portuguese dominated lucrative Asian trade networks. Even the Dutch used Portuguese as intermediate language to negotiate with the local Sundanese and Javanese. Portuguese was not merely to be the communication language between Europeans and ASEAN or between the higher and lower classes, but became the language of communication among the Asians living in Batavia. Knowing Portuguese might allow them to move freely and be an integrated part of Batavian society. However, the Batavian kept using Portuguese to communicate with each other, but they mixed it with Malay words. During the 18th century, the Batavian and etc. had been speaking Dutch in the 19th century. There is a Livro de Pantons edited by Professor Hugo Cardoso, found in the library of the National Museum of Archaeology in Lisbon. The manuscript is written in Malay, Dutch, Portuguese. Considering it has a 19th century handwriting style, it might come from Kampung Tuku, where strata of the Malay, Dutch, Portuguese culture existed side by side. There are 11 pantons or poems in the manuscript. Some of them is pantun Melayu penghiburan hati duka dan pilu, pantun dari Siti Laila Maijan, and the most important thing for me, pantun Jongker. The Tukis didn't have any choice and adapted to the surrounding. They started to speak Dutch or Dutch Creole or local languages. At present, they merely know some Portuguese words restricted to commonly used words at home. Those words concern the human body, agriculture, and nature. Some lexical sources could be understood only in the context of Kampung Tuku. For instance, Men Merah to the sea mean north, and Men Seha to the mountain mean south. The other important identity for the Kampung Tuku people, the music also plays a crucial role in identity construction, facilitating cultural expression and communal ties. Music in local celebration, whether it is through formal event or casual gathering, evoke nostalgia and pride among the villagers, where the melodies and lyrics sung in Portuguese foster emotional connection to their ancestry. After the death of the last Portuguese speaker named Jacob Kiko in 1978, the Portuguese were preserved in the form of musical lyrics. People can observe from the Rabu-Rabu tradition. This tradition aims to greet Happy New Year to every relative in the village. The word Habu comes from Portuguese, which means to follow. The habit of the resident Kampung Tuku in using the word is always repeated and better known in Indonesia as Rabu-Rabu. The Rabu-Rabu is like following the family group, which is stopped by and must join the group to visit the next house. It is called Rabu-Rabu because the host should follow the visitor and sing the keroncong together. And of course, the line gets longer. This tradition is held on the 1st of January every year and starts around 10 a.m. The equipment used is keroncong musical instrument, including tambourine and guitar. The community around Kampung Tugu supports, appreciate this tradition. There is no change from time to time in the process of implementing this tradition. The current rabu-rabu can be complemented in a day because fewer people are living in Kampung Tugu right now. In the past, this tradition could be carried out for 2 or 3 days. The rabu-rabu tradition is commonly followed by another tradition called the Mandi Mandi, after the keroncong song title of Mandi Mandi. It is a year-end event held at the Tugu Church. It begins with a joint prayer and is followed by a speech from the traditional elder to give an order requiring a member of community to forgive each other for mistake made during the year they have lived. Keroncong becomes a pivotal identity for the Tugis. Keroncong is musical mixture of the Portuguese, African, and Arabic culture. Through the process of acculturation, Keroncong music has been passed down to 3 generations by cultural enculturation for every Mardikas. From a historical perspective, Keroncong came from Fado, which is Portuguese European music brought by the Portuguese sailors on their eastern voyages. Initially, it is only used a 4-string guitar instrument with a length of 50 centimeters called cavaquinho and was played improvisationally with nuance of romantic and poetic verses. This fado was brought by the Portuguese on their voyage into West Africa, Goa, Malacca, and reached Kampung Tugu. The Tugis adapted it, local cultural elements, and created the keroncong music. The word keroncong comes from the sound of the guitar instrument, which sounds strong when played. The keroncong music is also used to accompany the dance performance, which is called Noni Tugu dance. Those melodies are Morisco, Nina Bobo, Caparino, and Praunga. Morisco comes from the word Morisco, Moor dance, and might be a part of the Moorish art. It might indicate to the medieval Muslim in the Iberian Peninsula. They converted to Christianity and kept their culture. The Christian master expelled them from their countries and forced them to the Iberian continent or Luso-Iberian Empire. The song tells about 2 separated lovers who want to dance the Morisco once again. Second melody is Nina Bobo or lullaby. The word Nina comes from the Portuguese menina or little girl, whereas Bobo refers to Chinese Malay word meaning to sleep. The other tune, Cafrinho, might refer to a Goan mestiza or an Africa Negro mestiza, hence the name was derived from the Portuguese word cafrinho or cafrinha. The last tune, Praunga, comes from the Portuguese word prongo, signifying for a singer. The Praunga melody is rarely heard at present, however it might have been popular among the Bandanese slaves in Batavia in the past, called keroncong Bandan. During the 18th century, Tugis also accommodated the Dutch language into the Luso-Malay musical lyrics. For instance, the song entitled Out Batavia, their accommodating ways was to fill the music taste in the Dutch East Indies, in particular in Batavia. Out Batavia song became the most popular song during the Dutch rule. At present, the keroncong musical groups remain singing the Dutch Malay song. Moving to the culinary hybridity, we have traditional dish from Kampung Tugu. The dish often prepared during communal gathering and celebration, served not only as a form of sustenance, but as a medium through which cultural identity is reinforced and shared. Food and various traditional sweets are emblematic of the village's historical roots and contribute to a sense of belonging and continuity among residents, linking them to their Portuguese ancestry and local heritage. Tugis keep preserving their typical dish based on the local ingredients. They cook ketan unti or white sticky rice covered with grated coconut and brown sugar, kue pisang udang, shrimp banana cake, apam kinca, apam covered with durian soup or brown sugar, and pindang serani tugu, Tugis fish seasoned with spices. Those cuisines would be the culinary hybridity and mandatory dish for the Tugu community at the beginning of Christmas or Rabu-Rabu tradition and the end of Christmas or Mandi Mandi. In addition, the Tugu community also has a type of European cuisine that is a dish at family events such as Tugu meat or dry meat, dried fish, spaghetti, macaroni, egg tart, probably pastéis nata, roulade, and beef stick or Japanese steak. As you can see in the screen, the cake name kue pisang udang. The Tugu community calls it kue pisang udang or shrimp banana cake because the dish is wrapped in banana leaf. The dish is made from rice flour, dough, and contain grated young papaya with shredded shrimp that is seasoned. It tastes very savory. The result of the shredded shrimp in it mixed with spices and young papaya. The basic dough is similar to Nagasari cake in Java and wrapped in banana leaves with triangular folds. The other culinary hybrid is bindang serani. Is a culinary dish made from fish or known as pes from Portuguese word. The culinary tradition aspect of bindang serani can be seen in the process of hunting or obtaining food ingredients reflecting the cultural tradition of the Portuguese descendants community in the 17th century in Batavia. The process of cultural and knowledge exchange between Europeans and local communities in the early modern period resulted in a mixture of cooking and dressing style as a manifestation of the Mardika's culture. In the 17th century, as you can see in the screen, Portuguese cultural elements such as clothing blended into the leaves of the Mardika. The mixed clothing culture between Portuguese and Asian style became characteristic of the Mardikas, namely wearing Portuguese clothes, white hats, but no shoes. This way of dressing developed into cultural identity of Tugu community. In addition, it is evidence of the fusion of two different cultural elements that were able to form a new identity in Batavia. The Tugu community, as descendant of the Portuguese, became part of the European community in Batavia. The Portuguese were also influenced by the Dutch lifestyle. Some Portuguese adapted the Dutch way of dressing, namely wearing black hats, headbands, jackets, batik scarves, socks, and shoes. The women wore long kabayas, preferably white, with puff sleeves, closed with small button at the wrist. A sort of a blouse was used for informal wear. By around the turn of the 19th century, women wore a saya from Portuguese saya, a long skirt of white and color-printed cotton, finely pleated and heavily starched. There was no difference between Mardikas and the other Christian in the kampungs of Batavia in terms of apparel worn. The other hybrid identity we can see from material culture of the church. The material culture represented by the Tugis church and tombstone significantly marks and expresses the identity of Kampung Tugu. The Tugu Church, established in 1678, served not only as a religious center, but also a crucial emblem of the cultural heritage binding the villages together. It maintains the Christian rituals and cultural practice that define their identity. After conquering Malacca, controlling the Asian trade network, the Dutch brought many Portuguese-speaking and black-skinned people to become slaves in Batavia. These mixed-blood people were called mestizo. The Dutch brought the mestizos people from Malacca and India after they occupied former Portuguese posts and shipping routes. The Dutch didn't allow mestizo people to practice their religion. Despite experiencing tight security, these people initially still brought a statue of the Virgin Mary to Batavia. The Dutch gave freedom to these people if they converted to Christianity. Therefore, they were nicknamed the Mardika and were given an area to live in the Tugu area. Although most of the Mardika had converted to Protestantism, they called the church the Portuguese church. In 1633, the first church was built from woven bamboo together and pray. The establishment of the first church, named the Portuguese Church in the city of Pindakep, influenced the social life in Kampung Tugu. In 1661, 23 Mardikas family received land around the same area close to the Batavia Castle. The Dutch placed them on the outskirts of Batavia Castle, intending to be the first defense if there was an attack on the Batavia Castle from outside. Although many of them were Protestant, the Mardikas secretly participated in the celebration of the Holy Mass Day. To the east of the walls of the Batavia Castle, there was a Portuguese church building built by the Dutch. Initially, this church was built as a place of religious learning. Due to the rapid development of Protestantism among the people of Tugu village, a stone church was consecrated outside the walls in 1678. However, it was mainly used by the Portuguese. This church later burned down and a bamboo church was built outside of the fortress walls on the east side. where there were large congregation of both Mardika and Christian native. It was eventually reconstructed in stone and consecrated in 1695. Construction of the church was carried out under the authority of Kerkmaster or church president, namely Johan van Horn. This church was later named the Portuguese church outside the city. During the 18th century, the Turkish kept serving the Dutch master as the military forces. They should secure Batavia and its surrounding from the Chinese rebellion, or we call in Indonesia as Geger Pecinan, in 1740. Consequently, the Chinese also destroyed the Turkish building, including the Tugu Church, renovated in 1738. In 1744, the church was rebuilt in the same location around the Tugu village, later named the Tugu Church. The construction of this church was funded by landowner named Justin Fick. Since 1748, the Mardika had celebrated worship in two languages, namely Malay and Portuguese. The Mardika also used the church as a school as well. Due to their isolated life, the Turkish could maintain the sustainability of their cultural heritage. However, in the early 19th century, there was only one priest who could use Portuguese. The Portuguese culture and language among the Mardikas began to fade. Even the old Mardikas houses were used as stone quarries to build new houses in the southern area. At the present day, there are only remnants of the Tugu community. Even the Tugu church has now changed to GPIP Immanuel. The GPIP Immanuel complex has several buildings entering the main door. Toward the south, we can see in the security post, church office, parking area, funeral home, hall, consistory, canteen, IKPT secretariat, performing art theaters on the west side, and parking area, cemetery, church bell, hall, and school on the east side. Besides the church, the 19th and 20th century tombstone also preserve the Portuguese identity in Kampung Tugu. However, they are mostly Protestant, but they keep following Catholic tradition. They visit their relative tombstone and light the candles on Christmas night, as the church, the graveyard, represent the religious symbol. Recently, there have been 372 graves. 7 surnames of Abraham, Michel, Kiko, Cornelius, Brown, Andres, and Solomon are depicted in the Turkish tombstone. There are no tombstones of good quality. In general, tombstones are made of ordinary stone. This indicates that the bodies buried are low-ranking official or ordinary civilian. However, like the other tombstone of high-ranking official, the tombstones in Kampung Tugu also have verbal signs containing full name, birthplace, birth date, date place, date, and verses from the Bible. On the tombstone of Frederick Abraham, there is the inscription of John 11 and 25. It states, Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection of the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And whoever he live and believe in me will never die. This passage could be understood differently. First, this passage highlights Jesus' unique authority over death and his ability to give eternal life. The verse also promises that those who believe in Jesus will live forever even after death. This passage offers comfort and hope to believers in the face of death, assuring them of a future life with Jesus. It could be used and in the context of the world after life. It might represent the Piri family's hope and that someone who has died can live eternally by Jesus' side. In addition to inscription from the Bible, tombstone also have various symbols. For symbols, you can see at the screen, horses, crosses, angel with trumpet and guitar are often found on the tombstone in the Kampung Tugu. Horses symbolize harmonious love, and 8 petal one symbolize purity spreading to the 8 corners of the compass. The cross symbolize compassion for fellow human being, for horizontal line, and love for the Creator for vertical lines. The cross symbolize Christian faith. Angels symbolize trusted guardian of salvation. Trumpets refers to the deceased from the Horn family. In the context of Kampung Tugu, trumpet may symbolize a sign of the presence of the day of the dead. To be concluded, for centuries the Mardika, later people call them Portuguese or Orang Tugu, live in a plural society from the Dutch colonialism to the Indonesian independence. The global interaction has allowed them to exchange their culture and create hybrid identities. The Tugis, as a worldwide community, represent its hybridity from its language, music, fashion, culinary, and material culture. In preserving the richness of Turkish culture, the stakeholder should document, transmit, and exhibit the Turkish culture continuously. We have launched and published a documentary movie of Turkish culture. Furthermore, Turkish culture should be promoted creatively and innovatively to attract wider audience. The stakeholder right now should also care for and improve the life quality of the cultural preservator, playing a pivotal role in sustaining their daily cultural activity. Thank you so much for your attention and good morning.
Make big this picture. Make big. Make big this picture.
Hallo, slideshow de ikos.
Eh? Eh? Besar. Enlarge the picture. Enlarge. Halabot. Oh, sorry. Sorry. It is my fault. You can read the gente Malay. In Portuguese, gente is people. And it was an observation of Portuguese word gente to gente. And I will ask you how you say church in Portuguese. Church. Igreja. Igreja is also, in Portuguese, church is igreja. And in Portuguese is igreja.
Thank you very much, Professor, and also Mr. Prime Minister. Before we proceed with a short coffee break, followed by the round table, we would like now to invite the group Keroncong Tugu Cafrinho from Tugu, Jakarta for a cultural presentation.
Molo kita continua a pausa breve para café, depois tu ir fali a mesa redonda. A minha cara convida grupo Keroncong Tugu Cafrinho, Husibairo Tugu Jakarta, para apresentação cultural. Sebelum kita lanjutkan dengan rehat kopi dan sesi meja bundar, kami mengundang Keroncong Tugu Cafrinho dari Kampung Tugu, Jakarta untuk pertunjukan musikal.
Selamat pagi. Oh, itu saya bicara pada diri saya sendiri berarti ya. Saya orang Indonesia. Ini dua kali yang kedua ya. Saya diundang oleh Bapak yang terhormat, yang terganteng, Bapak Sanana Gusmao. Iya. Pertama di CVLP 2014 dan sekarang bersama rombongan yang diketuai oleh Bapak Joseph Stamaria dari Malaka sebagai Ketua FPCC. Yuk kasih tepuk tangan dong. Iya. Oke, saya akan coba menyanyikan lagu Cafriño. Yo, ada Tugu Creole Song Portugis. Cafriño quiere andar gallo, ir a terbang narizaku, pasan a borduma, Orlando quiere navegar, filu-filu nangkor sama, tunggu aja di justisa. Bate-bate portas lah, bate-bate porta, ini aku quiere beber, perlas quiere entrar, yo mayo quiere saber. Dokdan Belu Cordon Barla Bombang Umekas Mundini mau Kere balang Unjong Difran Karta Pasai Fulang Orsegu Supesta Karonci Nakabesa Filu na barriga, bate-bate porta, ini aku quiere beber, perlas quiere entrar, yo mayo quiere saber, bate-bate porta, ini aku quiere beber, perlas quiere entrar, yo mayo quiere saber.
Bate na porta, pede água e quer beber. Ferlaz é que já não sei, quer entrar. E eu maio quero saber. É um bocado isto, é um bocado de... Bate na porta, ele pede água, quer beber. Ferlaz quer entrar, eu quero saber.
Mr. Sanana, you understand the mean the song? The meaning is lyric. But I don't understand. Yeah, I don't know what the
Yes, the meaning of the song, I don't know. The meaning of the words, yes, I can say. Again the words.
bate.
Bate, bate. Bate, bate na porta de pinto. Pede água. Minta ai.
What
minum.
Okay.
Quer beber. Verlas sulit sedikit. Quer entrar. Queres mau masuk.
Okay.
Eu quero saber. Saya mau tahu. Quero mau saber. Tahu?
Ya.
Ya. Ada karena ratusan tahun ada sedikit seperti juga mereka di Maelaka.
Thank you.
Ya. Lagu kedua, Gatu Matu.
há um gato que anda à ronda. Eu comi um. Eu como um rato-gaba. Não comeu nada porque ele quer um filho. Este Corsan deve ser uma pessoa, um homem, um rapaz. Eu quero esperar. Saia mau tungo, busca filho, cari anaknya. Eu quero casar. Eu quero casar. Saya mau menikah. Kawin. Este Corsan maybe mungkin ada seorang gini gitu. Eu quero esperar. Saya mau menanti karena saya mencari satu anak. Ya, eu quero casar, saya mau menikah. Ini karena ratusan tahun ada casar menjadi casar, beber menjadi bebe gitu. Tapi nggak apa-apa. Yes.
Okay, now I want to use the two good dance, ya, dengan sebuah lagu Yan Kagaleti. Okay, where the dancer?
Ladies.
Maybe Corsan is coração. Este coração. Bukan jantung, hati. Hati, bukan jantung. Hati mau espera, menunggu sampai dapat satu.
Ya. Terima kasih luar biasa. Kenti Embo suanora Ladang musikampu Posting picadu Rotan sing ebertu Yeru Sinyo cabaleru Terladur terang Ampurlah bagera Jatua kaploro Ya bira digera Isa Usa Naris di justisa Nyai dayang siadai pabentuk kelapa boto ditalak-talak Aku cinta olengkong Dan si bapa laba geng Cagaletti, Pedra Kenti, Keng Buswanora, Ladang Busi Kampu, Bosteng Pikadu, Tongkang Teng Eberdu, Yeru Yeru, Sinyo Caballero, Merlader Terra, Panturlang Bangera, Jatua Kaploro, Ya Bira Bigera, Isa, Usa, Naris di Justisa, Nyai Dayang Sia, Dayang di Kelapa Porto di Talang-Talang, Kamu Cina Olenggong, Ratu si mama dan si papa, laba-laba Cagaletti, Pedra Kenti, Keng Buswanora, Ladang Busi Kampu, Bosteng Pikadu, Tentang Teng Eberdu, Yeru Yeru, Sinyo Caballero, Merlader Terra, Tamburlang Bangera, Jatua Kaploro, Ya Bira Digera, Isa, Usa, Naris di Justisa, Nyai Dayang Sia, Dayang di Kelapa Porto di Talang-Talang, Aku Cina Olenggong, dan si mama dan si papa, laba-laba Cagaletti, Pedra Kenti, Keng Buswanora, Ladang Busi Kampu, Bosteng Pikadu, Tongkang Teng Eberdu, Yeru Yeru, Sinyo Caballero, Merlader Terra, Tampurlah Bagera, Jatua Kaploro, Ya Bira Bigera, Isa, Usa, Naris di Justisa, Nyai Dayang Sia, Dayang di Kelapa Porto di Talang-Talang, Aku Cina Olenggong, dan si mama dan si papa, laba-laba. Laba geng, laba teng, maybe the Malaka have been sung the Nina Bobo. That now Tugu version Nina Bobo. filu bunitu Lumina masya Lunte muskitu Filu bunitu Ya keren rumi Ya tantu bringga Ya tantu bumi Nina bobo Oma Nina bobo Nina bobo Oma Nina bobo Lumian Lumi Begitu Lumina Masya Tunte Muskitu Ratu matu nang bos mina aki
Ai pentador,
Kere ponta bos Gatu matu ai filu anda namas Yosua filu ya dumungkire Nina bobo Nina bobo Nina bobo Lumian Lumi
filho bonito,
Lumina Masya Nunte Muskitu
The lady said that at night, when a mother want to start, hand down the baby, used to sing the song, and the baby, laki-laki or perempuan, start to dreaming, maybe dorme, sleep. Filho és filho, ou filha. Filho is laki-laki, filha is perempuan, bonito, filho bonito. Dorme, filha bonita. Dorme e não tem mosquito. Mosquito is nyamuk. Não tem, I don't know, Filho bonito, já quer dormir. E é tanto brinca. Brinca is mãe, brincar. Tanto isso, tanto banho, e é tanto comer. Very good.
Thank you, Excellency.
Sambil kita minum kopi, saya akan coba.
Malusira hanesan ohini ia discurso primeiro-ministro hateten conferência luso comunidade asiática né importante atualmente unidade e a diversidade né bela preserva cultura português e a apresentação husi professor Dr. Zaya Wijaya husi tugu Indonesia nian nebe apresenta konaba siranya existência durante kolonial português nian iha Jakarta lilu iha tugu Jakarta malusir foi ni dane iha sessão tuir mais iha palestra nebe se apresenta husi professor Doutora Maria Alice Viola hanesan antropólogo no investigadora sobre a população do Sudeste Asiático, Husi Flores, Indonésia, onde tema maka presenças portuguesas nas ilhas de Solur, Flores, Timor.
E assim chegamos ao fim da primeira parte da manhã do último dia da quarta conferência Conferência das Comunidades Luso-Asiáticas. A sessão mais tarde vai ser marcada por debates enriquecedores e momentos culturais. E o ponto final, o ponto alto do dia será a apresentação e assinatura da Declaração de Dili, que marcará a criação oficial da Associação das Comunidades Luso-Asiáticas, ou APCA.
Malusira hanesan tuir agenda kata depois da mesa redonda iha media iha sessão de kusliumak se iha assina declaração dele com a criação da Associação das Comunidades Luso-Asiáticos ka APCA. Depois idane se continua o encerramento ka discurso encerramento nian husi Senhor Secretário Executivo CPLP, Senhor Zacarias da Costa, no iha kalan se iha apresentação dança cultural, husi representante comunidade luso asiático durante a quarta conferência luso comunidade asiático nebe halau iha dili. Nune maluk sira lori equipa neve serviço ba programa live stream by the sound ohinian hato loron dia e adeus.
É um passo histórico rumo ao fortalecimento dos laços entre as comunidades lusofonas da Ásia. E a partir de Dili encerramos esta cobertura. Em nome de toda a equipa da produção, agradecemos por nos ter acompanhado. Obrigada e adeus.